Do not buy a home in Colorado before you watch this video. This is going to be a survival guide checklist for you. And trust me, you're not gonna wanna just move here and buy a house before you watch this video and learn all 5 of the things I'm going to share with you on this checklist. So if you're thinking about moving here in the next 3, 6, 9 months, or even a year, and if buying a home is gonna be one of the options you're considering when you move here, then this video is gonna be super, super helpful for you. I'm gonna be very transparent. I'm gonna give you the truth. All of this is not exactly the news that you're gonna want to hear, but it's the news you need to hear. So here we go. Let's do it. And make sure to stick around to the end of this video because I'm gonna share with you a secret weapon that literally most people do not even know exists. This is a very real tool that my clients have at their disposal. And trust me, it is a game changer when it comes to people's options for buying a house. This is not some clickbait. This is not some woo-woo thing in the clouds. This is a very real tool that my clients have as an option that has been a game changer for them. And when they've chosen to deploy this tool, it has made a huge difference in their lives. So stick around to the end of this video to find out more about that. Number 1, location, location, location. Obviously, you have to narrow down where you want to live. Some of this is gonna be dependent, obviously, on your job. Okay, so if 1 or 2 of you are moving here, or if you're moving here with a family, and some of you have a job, speaking of family, you hear my little girl just woke up for a nap over there. You might have a job that's location-based. Maybe you need to be in a certain part of town. Maybe you need to be close to a specific office. But let's just take that out of the equation for now because a lot of people either work from home full-time or they work remote or they work from home a couple days a week and work in the office a couple days a week. So they're not as bound by location. At least in my experience, I've worked with a lot of people that are in that situation. So really it comes down to knowing the different parts of Denver, the different parts of town, knowing your options way, way ahead of time before you even think about buying a house. Because you've got to know, what are the areas that appeal to me? What part of town do I want to live in? And this is going to come down to what's important for you and your family. Do you want to be close to the airport? Do you travel a lot? Do you want to be close to downtown Denver? Do you really want to be in all the action there? Do you want to be out west, close to the mountains? Or do you just want to be west of I-25 so you can be closer to the mountains but still have access to the city? That's been my experience. My wife and I moved to Arvada for that reason. A lot of my clients want to be west of I-25 so that they can have easier access to the mountains, but that truthfully comes at a big cost, especially for home prices. It just gets more expensive the closer you get to the mountains. So you really want to know the nuances of the different neighborhoods, the different cities, what you get, how close you are to amenities, shopping, things like that, because there's a lot of parts of Denver. It's a big city, and there's a lot of parts of all the suburban cities around. So let's put a picture of this up on a map. You can see the big circle, this highway, E470, that goes around most of it. So this is like the Denver metro area, but other than just the city of Denver, there is Lakewood, there's Littleton, there is Centennial, there's Aurora, there's Parker, there is going up east, there's Commerce City, then you've got Thornton, and you've got Brighton, and you have Broomfield going west, and you have Arvada, you have Westminster, you have Wheat Ridge, you have Golden, right? And all of this is Denver Metro. Before we get up into Boulder County, Superior, Lafayette, Louisville, Boulder, Erie, that's an entire different location that's going to come with some nuances there as well. And by the way, Boulder County is very, very expensive. So this is just a snapshot of one of the things you want to be thinking about is what's the part of town that I want to live in? Because you can't home shop everywhere. You really got to narrow down where you want to live first, or at least your top 1 or 2 areas, right? You can't be home shopping in Fort Collins and in Colorado Springs at the same time. Those are going to be 2 completely different lifestyles. So you're really going to want to narrow things down. Side note on this, my wife and I used to think we wanted to move to Fort Collins. I freaking love Fort Collins. It's amazing. The downtown area is super cute. It's a college town. I spent a lot of time vacationing here when I was a kid. The Horsetooth Reservoir is right there. It's an amazing, amazing town. But here's the thing. After we had visited a couple more times thinking about moving here, we also had visited some friends in Denver, and we realized Denver has a lot more of the vibes that we like. It's a bigger city. We can make more friends there. There's more opportunities to grow our businesses. This was back when I was a music teacher and my wife was a wedding photographer before I was even in real estate. But we just kind of thought like, this is going to be a better fit for us to plant a flag rather than Fort Collins. And we narrowed down Denver, and then we narrowed down Arvada. And that's what helped us know the range of the neighborhoods, the places we wanted to actually home shop when it came time to buy a house. So this is the same kind of lens you want to be looking through in terms of location. Obviously, you got to visit to figure out like what the vibe is and what's important to you and what you like. Also, here's a tip, is to visit at different times of the year, because this city is very different in the summer than it is during the winter. The spring still could be a lot of snow, but it could be beautiful. The fall is amazing. The fall is like one of my favorite times of year. But if you're not a fan of cold, you might not want to move here because we do have some serious winters. That being said, it does, like the snow melts fairly quickly compared to like a Midwest winter, but it does get pretty cold and the snow can come out of nowhere for a long stretch of the year from like November to April. We love it. We love the dry climate. We moved here from Orlando, Florida 8 years ago, but we had spent time there in all 4 seasons. So you don't have to spend time here during each of the 4 seasons, but my point is visit it, try to visit once during the summer and once during the winter, just to feel things out if you've never visited here before. That will give you a better idea, first of all, if this city is even the right fit for you. If you've already narrowed that down and you know like generally you want to live in Denver or some part of Colorado, that's great. Then it's a matter of spending time in the specific cities. So for example, a lot of people like Arvada, I do, because it has a really cool area called Old Town. And the streets since like post-COVID have even been blocked off, and now it's more walkable and it's even better for kids and that sort of thing. But there's a lot of shops and restaurants. It's not like a huge downtown area, but there is a lot to do there. It's much smaller than like downtown Denver, so it's like easy to get around. It's very cute, it's very quaint. Lots of good breweries, lots of good coffee. Very, very fun. There's lots of festivals there, things like that. So being close to an amenity like this was important to us. And we even moved like 10 minutes north of here when we first bought our house, and it was easy to get there. Now we even moved about another 5 minutes west. We're closer to Stanley Lake in Northwest Arvada. It's about 15 minutes to get to Old Town Arvada, but that's great and we love it. So spending time around Old Town will give you a better idea of like, okay, do we want to be close to here or not? And then you get into more of the nuances of what do the homes cost around here? What can I get? Bang for my buck? What's important to me? And we'll talk more about that later on in this video. So that's number 1 is location. You really want to be dialed down to generally which part of town you want to be in, whether that's right close to downtown Denver or which neighborhood in Denver, or if you want to be on the Aurora side, which is a really big pocket, or if you want to be up in the northeast quadrant, like closer to the airport, or if you're good to be anywhere west of I-25, do you want to be Arvada, Wheat Ridge, Westminster, Littleton, Lakewood? I mean, even that is a big area to traverse. So most people can kind of get it down to 1 or 2 cities or a region and go from there. Number 2, know the game you are playing in. Have you ever been playing a game? A sports game, a board game, whatever it is. And as you just start to get into it, you realize very quickly, oh shoot, I have no idea what I've gotten myself into. And when it's a game, if it's for fun, or even if you're gambling, if you don't have that much money on the line, then it's kind of not that big of a deal. You figure out, you fumble your way through it and you figure it out. Maybe you lose, maybe you win by accident, but it's probably not that stressful because it's a game. When it comes to buying a house, you absolutely do not want to do this. And there are a lot of nuances to the game of home shopping. Part of it is a game, for real. Like you've got to know the rules, you've got to know how to play, you've got to know your options, you've got to have a strategy, all that stuff. And even though moving to a new city and the prospect of buying a home can be stressful, like a game, it also can be a lot of fun if you are prepared correctly. Now, here's the thing. Even if you've bought a home before and you think you know the process, okay? Even if you've bought a home in Colorado years ago, the landscape of real estate has changed a lot. Dramatically, it's changed over the last couple of years. And the rules around the real estate contracts in the last couple of years have changed a lot. For example, there's one specific date and deadline that used to be the place where you would write in a date by which point you could cancel a contract and probably get your earnest money back pretty easily if you don't qualify for your loan. Well, that date has now been split into 2, and now there's 2 sections. Real quick, we'll go over this. So one is called new loan terms, and the other is called new loan availability. And these two deadlines are split now, and one of them is a date at which you've got to be good with all the terms of your interest rate. And now typically in practice, it's better to put that not super late in the contract because you should know the terms of your loan before you even write an offer on that house. But the other one is loan availability, which is one of the last checks a lender is going to do to make sure you haven't lost your job, you haven't financed a couple of Hummers, things like that, right? But if you don't know these nuances, this just changed from 2022 to 2023, for example. If you didn't know this and you weren't writing your dates in the contract correctly when you go to buy a house, you could really be exposing yourself to a lot of risk financially, also with time. Also, you might actually lose the home that you want for you and your family, which obviously is gonna have a lot of drastic implications in a bad way. One of the reasons I do what I do is to help give people a lot of layers of clarity way in advance, way ahead of time, before we even hit foot shopping, boots on the ground in the driveway, so that by the time you get to that driveway and you're looking at the house that you really want for your family, you know the game you're playing in, you know your options, and you are in control. It can take a lot of the stress out of the entire home buying process by just being prepared ahead of time. That being said, there are a lot of other nuances you need to know about in terms of the landscape of the real estate market, how fast homes move. So for example, right now, as we go from the spring to the summer of 2024, homes are selling right now at 8 days on average on market, which means some homes are gonna sell really, really fast the first day they're on the market. Some are gonna sit for 2 or 3 weeks, but the average is 8 days. You can look at this graph. Some of this is relatively predictable based on the season and the time of year that you're buying in. Another one of these nuances you gotta know about. It's not just the neighborhood, it's the time of year that you're shopping in that neighborhood, and that will tell you part of the story of what you can expect, and that will inform your decision-making process. That's just an example of one of the nuances here about the game of real estate. Supply and demand is another big one there, where you've got to know like how much inventory is there out there. It seems like homes sell fast. There's not that much for sale. What does that mean? Well, right now in the city of Denver, there is 2.6 months of inventory. Generally speaking, if you're at 6 months of inventory, meaning if no new homes came on the market, it would take 6 months at the current rate of the demand to eat up all the supply. Anything less than that is typically a market in favor of sellers. Anything more than that is typically a market in favor of buyers. We haven't had anything over like 4 or 5 months in like 10 years, which is why home values in Denver have gone up so fast. So knowing the landscape of the market of how fast homes are selling, how many homes are available at any given time will help inform your decisions, will make you a smarter and more informed buyer. So you can decide, do I even enter the market or do I wait? That's up to you, but you can't really make these decisions completely if you don't have all of the context and know the game you're playing in the first place. So know the game you're playing in way ahead of time and you'll be set up for success. Two of the other most common fears that buyers have about the game to play is they don't want to overpay when they find that house and they don't want to miss anything. How to not overpay is sort of a nuanced question to answer. It really is going to be house specific, not just time of year specific. You've got to know obviously the neighborhood, you've got to know how fast homes are selling in the neighborhood, but every house, even in a neighborhood, could sell at a different pace or for a different amount, even if it's the same house. Based on other examples, like does it face a busy side of the street or does it face the mountains? Those things can have sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars of swings one way or the other. So especially if you're from out of town, this can be kind of tricky because it could be like, why did this house sell for more? Why did this house sell for less? Why did this house sell fast? And why did this one sit for a while? These are the kind of questions you want to be asking and the kind of data you want to be looking at well in advance of even starting to shop for homes, because you will just have a much clearer understanding of the game that you're going to be playing in. And let me ask you a question. Have you ever played a game that you like have read the rule book, or a sport that you knew very, very well leading up to the time you were going to play? You probably felt a lot more confident. Buying a home is no different. The thing is, most people only do it like once every 5, 7, or 10 years, right? So like you don't need to know all this stuff all the time. And even when you do, things change all the time. For example, the rules and laws around people working with their buyer's agents nationally are changing. They've been changing. It's going to be changing this summer. How that's gonna play out, we still have yet to see. But before you even enter the market, you as a buyer have to have super clarity from the team you're working with around this, because a lot of stuff is changing all the time. So like I said, even if you've bought a few homes before and you've sort of been through that process and you know what it's like, it's gonna be different just because it's a different time. And if you've never bought a home in Colorado, there's a lot of new things to learn. There's a lot of specific disclosures to this state. Contract law is always changing, and now buyer agency law is changing a lot. You just wanna have clarity around all of this stuff before you even dive into the game. And then you and your family will be set up to win the game. How's that sound, right? Nobody likes to lose. I don't. And with that being said, I wanna thank you again for watching this video on this channel. My name is Marco Randazzo. I am a full-time realtor with 8Z Real Estate, and I help lots of people just like you successfully relocate here to the Denver area. And I've helped lots of people figure out what part of town is best for them and help them navigate the home buying process so that them and their family get their relocation off to a good start. So here's the thing. If you're thinking about moving here, if you have any questions at all about Denver, the home buying process, different neighborhoods, anything like that, feel free to reach out at any time. My email is gonna be linked right here on the screen. You can also find it in the show notes. I'd be happy to be a resource for you and give you lots of clarity on all of your options. Number 3, do not start shopping for a home, even online. Don't even go on Zillow and look for homes until you are approved. I know, this sounds like the most realtor thing I could say. Don't shop for a home before getting approved. You've probably seen this and heard this a bunch, but it is true. And here's the thing. If you are not absolutely sure about your specific budget and you go online and you and your family are looking at a bunch of homes on Zillow, let's say you're looking for homes at like $1 million, and then you get approved for a loan and it's like your most ideal situation is gonna be at 800. Those are very different houses. And then you're all of a sudden gonna be set up for like kind of a letdown, and you might be kind of disappointed, and it's just a bad way to start. So in my experience, and I do this all the time for a living, it is going to be the best experience for you as a buyer to do this in advance before you shop for homes, even online. Get approved with a local lender, get clarity on the landscape of interest rates, the best loan products and options for you, because there's a lot of them that are out there. Most of them are pretty generic and pretty simple, but you really need to know, like, where's the jumbo loan limit? What kind of down payment do I need to be putting to make sure I stay out of jumbo territory? Or if I'm definitely gonna be in the jumbo loan category, what are my options there? Don't let that scare you. I've done a jumbo loan myself. I had a lot of clarity from my local lender right here with Collective Mortgage, and it was very, very helpful so that I fully understood what my options were. And then me and my family were able to make the decisions so that we could get ourselves into our dream home. And by the way, we did. So you wanna have a good idea of what you're approved for, what you're planning for your down payment, what the best interest rate is for the specific kind of loan product that you are going to get, and what your monthly payment is going to be. You should also look at generally what are the taxes for the kind of home and the part of town that you're buying in, because some of them are like $2,000 a year and some are like $10,000 a year. It really just depends. That makes a big difference for your monthly payment. Also, new construction is very, very different. Even when they don't have HOAs in the community, oftentimes they come with higher taxes, like 1.5%. And so you want to know all these things well in advance so that you don't set yourself up for having a bad experience. Now, why do I say local lender? You can go online to like Rocket Mortgage or any of these websites and get a pre-qualification very quickly. Well, the thing is, pre-qualification honestly is like garbage. It doesn't really mean anything. I could go on and get pre-qualified for anything with just a couple clicks. All a pre-qualification is some lender or bank or institution saying, you're probably good for this loan. We'll probably give you the money. Go ahead and start shopping. But when it comes down to what you're actually approved for, that is typically very, very different. Now look, if you have a solid income, or if you and your partner have two really solid incomes, or if you have a lot of equity in the house that you're gonna sell first and you're not worried about having a down payment or qualifying, then great. Like if you know that, that's awesome. But a lot of people don't have real specific clarity on this in advance, and they don't set themselves up for enough success. So again, the reason I say local lender is even if you are 100% qualified already in a different state with your lender over there that you've done like 5 deals with and you're good friends with and all of that, like that's fine, that's awesome. But here's the thing, I'm gonna tell you a story. This is true. I sell houses as well as working with buyers, okay? I recently sold a house and we had 2 offers on that home. Both of the offers were very, very similar in terms of price, terms, closing, dates and deadlines, buyer qualification, all of that stuff. There was one major difference. One of them had a pre-approval from a lender that was out of state, and one of them had a pre-approval from a lender that was local. I presented all the information to my seller, and they chose the one with the local lender. And the buyer who submitted an offer on my seller's listing, which was a solid offer with a strong down payment and a real pre-approval from a lender that I called and verified all the stuff with their bank, that person lost the home they wanted when they were moving here to Denver. And they lost it for one simple reason. They did not have a local lender. Now, this may sound kind of brutal and not really fair, and you might be asking yourself why, but the truth is, a local lender has a higher chance of getting you to the closing table faster, which is gonna mean a higher net profit and a quicker sale for my seller. So we're looking at it through this lens, and the other one just came with more risk because out-of-state lenders might not know that you have to get a rush appraisal. They might not have the appraisal done within the right dates and deadlines. You know, maybe they're fine, but maybe they're not. That's really the case with any lender. Now, if it's a local lender who doesn't know what they're doing, or I got bad vibes from, or the date on the pre-approval letter was from like 10 years ago, that happened once, my seller didn't choose that offer, then obviously those are factors we would take into consideration. But if it's someone who lives here and does a lot of deals locally, the chances of them getting their buyer to the closing table, honestly, they're just higher because they know this market. So my advice to all of my clients is very clear. If you have a pre-approval from another lender out of state, that's completely fine. I highly advise you to get approved with a local lender here, just so you have options in your pocket. So if you find yourself in a situation where you know the game you're playing in, you identify the location, you identify the neighborhood, and you get pre-approved and you finally find that house and it's the one that you want for you and your family, you have the option to choose to make that offer with your out-of-state lender or with your local lender. That's up to you, but that's not a choice you can make in the moment if you haven't been approved ahead of time. So this is why number 3, I put this on the list. It's extremely important. Get approved with a local lender. I'm gonna put Allie Williams' contact on screen. You can work with anyone you want, but she is my recommendation because she's local. She is awesome to work with. She's helped tons of my clients, and she is the one who has access to this secret weapon that I've been alluding to that I'm gonna talk more about at the end of this episode. It is our option to have you become a cash buyer and give you a super strong edge in the game. If you find yourself in a competitive situation, again, we're gonna talk more about that later, but if you need a local resource, her info is gonna be on screen. We're also gonna have her email address linked in the description below, so that's completely up to you, but I highly recommend reaching out to her. Utilize her as a resource. She's amazing at the jumbo loan product territory. She really knows what she's doing. Like I said, she's helped tons of my people. Doesn't commit you to working with her. Just be transparent with her if you already have someone else and just tell her, Marco sent me to you and said I need to get approved with a local lender, even though I really like my bank back home. And I'm gonna tell you one more story before we move on to number 4 and number 5. A friend of mine is a realtor in Fort Collins with another brokerage, and they also work with relocation people a lot. And they had one client who was gonna be relocating here like next year. This recently happened, and they happened to be visiting town sooner than they were expecting to. And they were like, let's just go kind of shop around a couple of neighborhoods to feel things out. And so my friend was taking them around and shopping in a couple of neighborhoods. They happened to find this one specific house on a golf course that they fell completely in love with. It was remodeled. It was a very unique situation, a very, very unique house. And they were like, we love it. Let's make an offer. Thankfully, they saw the house on a Thursday morning. By Friday morning, there was 3 offers on that house, and they were thinking like, we need to put an offer. And my friend is like, well, great, you have your pre-approval like from another bank, but you haven't been pre-approved for the local bank. They made an offer. They were $100,000 over list price, which is not uncommon at like the $1.3, $1.4 million price point. They actually ended up being the highest offer by $25,000, but that person lost, and I'll tell you why. The other offer was a cash offer, and this person's client lost the home. They were really upset about it because it was a very unique house. Maybe it'll come up again, maybe not, maybe it'll be a while. This is a true story. This is a sad story, but this is a reality. Have you ever heard of people losing to a cash offer? Yeah, happens a lot. Out here in Colorado, about 1 out of every 4 offers are cash. So if you don't have cash, or if you don't have the option to be a cash buyer, then you might not have a chance. You literally might not stand a chance, and that sounds kind of brutal, but that is the reality. And the truth is, the homes that are really, really nice, or that are in the right part of town, or that check all the boxes, or that have been remodeled, or right at that price point, like those are likely to be competitive. They're gonna be popular because you're thinking about moving to Denver. There's other people thinking about moving to Denver. There's other people like me who relocate within Denver to a different part of town, Once I had a kid, Lizzie and I were like, oh my God, we need more space right away. And we went and bought our dream home, and it was competitive, but we won. But we knew all of our options at the time. So if you find yourself in that competitive situation and you don't have the option to be a cash buyer, one, you might be hosed. But two, it would just suck if you weren't prepared ahead of time. Now, my friend, that situation, that story I just told you about, like, you know, they weren't really serious at the time, but for all of my clients, like, here's the thing. By the time we get to that phase, they are so prepared, they know all of their options, and I advise all my clients to get pre-approved for the cash buyer program here, which essentially is this. I'll give it to you in a nutshell. You get approved for a loan. We put you through underwriting so we know you're approved for that loan. And then you have the option to use our cash to make a cash offer. We close in 2 weeks, and then you finish the loan and buy the house right back from us. Costs 1% of the house you're buying to use the program. You get to decide if you're gonna use that edge or not. We'll talk more about this later. But again, like my clients who've been in that situation where they had the cash offer, they're the ones who've won the home in a multiple offer situation. And when that listing agent is calling all the other buyer's agents back, and they're like, thanks for the offer, you lost the home. Thanks for the offer, your buyers lost the home. Why did they lose? Well, it was cash. Like, shoot. And then the buyers are like, damn it, we don't have $1.3 million in cash. We have no chance. Well, my clients didn't have that either. They were using our cash buyer program. It's pretty sweet. All that to say, this tip number 3, do not start shopping for a home until you're pre-approved for a loan and you have all the options financially in your pocket. This is gonna make the entire process much smoother for you.
I have great news because me and my team have put together the ultimate relocation guide that is meant to save you hours of research. And here's the thing, it's completely free. Yeah, who doesn't love free? And I hope you find it helpful.
Number 4, this is gonna be similar to know the game you're playing in. It's gonna be more about knowing the specific piece of the rule book that you need to know when you're making an offer. And that is to know all of your options, all of the tools in your tool belt, not just to make a cash offer or not, but you gotta know the terms, you gotta know the dates, you gotta know info about inspections and how to write that language. You gotta know info about appraisals and how you can give yourself an edge by writing in an appraisal gap if you choose to. You have to know what escalation clauses are. You have to know what a rent back is. I'm not trying to overwhelm you here. If you've bought a house, then you know some of these terms, right? But all of these are super, super important. There's not just the price. Obviously, that's a big one. But you have to know your options with the dates. How fast can we close? Are we making a cash offer, or is it going to be a loan contingent offer? Are we going to limit our inspection to health, safety, major systems? Or are we going to take it further and be more aggressive with that? How do we protect our earnest money? How do we make this appealing to the seller? What is an appraisal gap? What are our options there? What is an escalation clause? How do we make sure we don't get beat by someone else because we didn't know our options? Does the seller need a rent back? What is that like? You've got to know all these things, okay? This is super, super important. I have sat with sellers who looked at an offer who had a price that was way higher than the other offers, but the terms, the dates, they were all off. It was messy, or it simply didn't come with any strong terms. And another one had a lower price, but very strong inspection language, a full appraisal gap. It came with a rent back. It came with a pre-approval letter from a local lender and a lot of good communication. And my seller had a lot more confidence that was the offer that was going to get him to the closing table. It's not just about price. Obviously, money is very important. So this segment number 4 is going to be a lot shorter, but I'll wrap it up by saying this. If you don't know this section of the rule book, you're screwed. Like, even if you've bought a house before out here in Colorado, things are just a lot different. I mean, state to state, contract rules are a lot different. Neighborhood to neighborhood, things sell faster or slower. So again, if you find a house that's been on the market for a while, some of this is gonna be less important because then the conversation is, how do we get a deal on this house? How do we figure out really where market value or the range of market value is for this house so that we can negotiate it down? What's the best strategy there so we can get ourselves a freaking deal on this place? That's an entirely separate conversation, which is very important to have if you find yourself in that spot. But if you find yourself in a competitive situation, you better know this rule book. You better be prepared ahead of time. So that's number 4. Number 5, do not buy a home in Colorado if you're not absolutely sure that you're gonna be there for at least 2 years. I would say these days, at least 3 years. And the reason is this: homes are simply not appreciating as fast as they have been over the last several years. That's the truth. Now that may be kind of surprising to hear a realtor say something like that, but my job is to be transparent and deliver the real information. This is not the news. This is not a media outlet. I'm a real person with a real business helping real clients move here who have real families who want to live in a real house and make an actual smart decision, not just about the house and their living situation, but a smart financial decision for them and their family, because this has big implications one way or the other. So you've got to know the game you're playing in, yes, and part of this has to do with the numbers. So for example, right now we're in the middle of 2024 and homes are up, we'll put this graph on screen, homes are up on average 3.2% in the city of Denver. I expect that as we go through the second half of the year, that to taper off, and we might even end at a flat situation and homes might not have appreciated through the whole year. Again, I don't have a crystal ball. Obviously, nobody really knows what's going to happen. But if you look back at the market trends, the data shows some level of predictability. Now, obviously, in like the stretch of 2014 and 2019, there was more of an even, projections. You can kind of see like what the trends were. They sold faster in the spring, slower through the winter, and then the cycle repeats. And this is a graph looking at all the homes that have sold in Denver at any 6 months of a given time, which I like to look at the data this way because it catches 2 quarters and it gives you a good snapshot of what's happening in the real estate market with home prices. But if you stretch this thing out and look at a 12-month graph, it's kind of just going up until you get to COVID. And then we had this whole strange situation with interest rates really dropping and then hardly anyone selling their houses. And then the ones who did buy houses got in at a good time. And then all of that compression with the inventory paired with affordability just made home prices shoot up like crazy. And then we didn't have seasonality. It just like went like that through the spring and through the winter. And then interest rates started to tick up. And then in 2022, in the summer, typically when you get from summer to winter and homes start selling a little bit slower or for not as much money, is also when interest rates really started peaking up past like 6%. And then a lot of buyers were like, whoa, and they slowed down and they stopped buying houses as fast. And as a result, home values dropped and we saw the first big decline in home prices. Guess what happened in 2023? They started going right back up. In a spring market where things are competitive, even with interest rates around 7%. And here we are in 2024, and we've just gone through the spring market, even with interest rates fluctuating, they're still back around 7%, a little bit lower now. And you still have competitive situations all the time. But I expect through the winter, things will get a little lower. Generally speaking, you just want to know that you're going to be in that house for a while, because the truth is homes are probably not going to appreciate that like 10 to 15%, post-COVID times like we saw. That's probably not gonna happen anytime soon. Now, obviously I want that to happen for me. I'm a homeowner. I have an Airbnb. I want my values to go up, but I'm not selling my houses anytime soon. So it kind of doesn't matter because the value is just in the air and it's equity and I'm just holding this thing long-term. And even if there is these waves, I have a lot of faith that long-term, it's just gonna be going in the same direction that it always has. That being said, if you're thinking you're gonna buy a house just from an investment standpoint and you're gonna keep it and then turn it around and sell it in a couple of years, you gotta consider that it costs money to sell a house. So you really wanna be sure if that's the case, then you're buying a house at the specific right situation that works for you, and take a really close look at the numbers and know the projections and know what it's gonna cost to sell the house. And if you're flipping it, that's an entirely different story. But if you're relocating here to live here, you just really want to be sure that it's the right investment. If you're moving here and you're gonna only be here for a year or two, honestly, you should probably rent. I get no actual business value from helping people rent houses, but if that's the right situation for you, I have a resource for renters that is very helpful, that helps you understand rental contracts, can put you in touch with a really good rental resource in case you have legal questions, things like that. And I just want to be helpful for my clients and for everyone I know to be a valuable resource, because I will also earn people's trust and referrals that way. That's the way I've chosen to grow my business, and it has served me really, really well. If you're gonna be in the house for longer than a couple of years, if buying a house is on your heart, if it's on your minds, if it's a goal of yours, I can absolutely help you get clarity around the nuances of what all of that looks like, but you really wanna be sure that it's the right decision. That's why I put this at number 5. It's the last one, but it's very, very important. Again, if you have any questions about this, reach out anytime. And I'm happy to give you clarity on the reality, even if that doesn't lead to a paycheck for me, because one of the ways I run my business is clients before commission, because I'm not in this just to help people buy one house. It's not really gonna move the needle on my life or my business, but giving people absolute transparency so that they understand the game they're about to enter in and they can make decisions, that's gonna be the best thing for them. And so that's the lens at which I operate my entire business through. All that being said, we are currently in a 7% interest rate environment, and one of my clients just won a house. They were one of 4 offers, okay? And they won it by knowing all of the tools at their disposal. They were prepared ahead of time. They got the house that they love in the neighborhood they wanted for their family by following this process. And my client said to me, shoot, man, if this is how things are at a 7% interest rate environment, I would sure hate to be a buyer when the rates drop. Yeah, that's the reality. Like not every house sells that fast, but the ones in the right neighborhoods that are priced right, that have the updates, that aren't on a busy street, they're usually gonna sell pretty fast. So if that's the kind of house that you want for your family, you better be prepared ahead of time, because especially when rates start ticking down and then rates are around 6% or then 5%, buyer affordability is gonna go way up and the demand is already really hot, so that's gonna go up even further. I don't say all that to scare you, I just say that to say this. It's very important you have clarity on the landscape of the real estate market well in advance before you even decide to start home shopping.
Hey guys, it's Marco. As much as I love making these videos, there's something I love even more, and that's helping people from all over the US relocate here to Denver successfully. I've helped countless families relocate here. So if that's you and you're thinking about making a move here, 1 month, 6 months, or even a year, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, so my information is going to be linked in the description below in case you missed the pop-up on screen. And I look forward to connecting with you and helping you to get all of your options very clear as you consider moving here to Denver.
So we're gonna wrap all this up. There's a lot to learn here, but I do wanna give you the bonus tip I talked about, okay? It's essentially this. Our cash buyer program is incredible. We have an account with First Bank, it's a local bank, and we always have at least $10 million in this bank account. It's real money. And when you're approved with Ali Williams with Collective Mortgage, you also have the option to get approved for our cash buyer program, which essentially lets you choose to deploy a cash offer or a regular loan contingent offer. That's up to you. Like I said, it costs 1%. You get approved for the loan. We really make sure you're qualified for the loan and there's not gonna be any problems there. We put you through a high level of the loan approval process through underwriting, all that stuff. And then you can understand more, if you want to, about our cash buyer program and what the nuances there and how it works. But basically it's this. If you find a house that's gonna be in a competitive situation and you wanna give yourself an edge by choosing to pay 1% of the cost of the house you're buying. So if it's $1 million house, it's gonna cost 10 grand. And then you can choose to use our cash, leverage a cash offer. We can close in 2 weeks, extremely competitive, very smooth, huge edge to you. And then you close on that house, get to move right in, finish up the loan with Collective Mortgage and buy the house right back from us. And that time in between can usually be done in like a week or two. It's very fast. If you want more information around how all this works, reach out anytime. I'm telling you, it is a game changer. And if you don't even know what this option is and you find yourself home shopping and get beat out by a cash offer, how do you think you would feel? If you then find out you could have been the one with the cash offer, probably wouldn't feel that good. Not every situation is advisable to use it. If the home's been on the market for a while, you probably don't need to use it. You still could and maybe leverage it to try to negotiate the price down even further, but you absolutely don't have to. That's completely up to you. All the decisions are yours, but you can't make all the decisions if you don't know all the tools that you've got at your disposal at any given time. And the entire game of real estate is about options, okay? Knowing your options. There's another video I'm gonna put up on screen right now. This is a long interview I did in my studio with Ali Williams, and we talk a lot about the loan process, and we talk a lot specifically about cash buyer. So if you're driving around a lot, just throw this thing on in the car and listen to it. It's gonna give you a lot more information around how the cash buyer program works, but that is literally a secret weapon that all of my clients have at their disposal. And if you want that at your disposal, that can be your option too by just reaching out to us and we can help you understand how that process actually works. All right, so that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. If you want the number one most actionable next step for you that you can take right now, I'll tell you exactly what it is. If you're thinking about moving to Denver, if you're thinking about buying a house in the next 3, 6, 9 months or a year, a buyer consultation with me is gonna be the most helpful next step for you. It's free, it doesn't commit you to anything. If you choose to do that, you can reach out to me anytime. Again, my information is linked on screen, it's gonna be in the show notes. All of my clients who have had a buyer consultation with me have had enormous benefits from there. My goal is to give everyone total clarity on the process so that you are completely in control of all the decisions and then you are confident you'll be making the right choices for you and your family. Buyer consultation takes about an hour. If you're not living in town and you want to do it over Zoom, most of my clients do it just like this on a Zoom call. Right now I'm on vacation in Florida with my family, visiting Orlando, visiting some friends. We moved here from Orlando to Denver 8 years ago, but we do it just like this over a Zoom call. And then you can get to know more about my process. I can get to know you and more about what you need. And I can explain how things are gonna work for your situation, give you lots of helpful information, and then I can give you lots of good next steps from there, depending on what is important to you. So reach out anytime and I would love to be helpful to you. All right, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If this was helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe. I would really, really appreciate it. And again, thanks for watching. Peace.